and welcome to my latest landscape photography video diary here in Tasmania. On this very cold, bleak morning, I'm heading into the Cradle Mountain National Park, and I'm guessing this video is going to be one of many, as Cradle Mountain has lots of photography potential. This morning I'm going to head straight into the Dove Lake car park with the hope of getting a sunrise over the mountain. I can see stars looking out the window at the moment, which tells me it's reasonably clear, but there is a lot of water on the road as well, which tells me it's been raining, and like most mountains, if there's a lot of rain they're quite difficult to photograph because they generally fog over. But Cradle Mountain National Park has got plenty to offer in terms of photography, so if you can't see the mountain, there's plenty of other things to go and check out along the way.
So it's pre-dawn here at Cradle Mountain. I've just left the car and walked for about 10 minutes around to this area which is known as the boat shed. I'm on a little gravelly beach. Just looking behind me, I don't know if you can see yet, the light's not really good enough, but Cradle Mountain's got a spectacular dump of snow on it, which looks amazing. Both peaks are visible at the moment. Cradle Mountain can be a little bit shy at times. You can come up here for a day or 2 days or even 3 days and see nothing. So to actually see both peaks at the same time for a sunrise should be truly amazing. So I'm just going to go and find my little spot that I sussed out a few days ago and set up and try and get a sunrise over Cradle Mountain. So I've just put myself down into position here at Dove Lake, and as you can see the sun is just starting to come up over the horizon to the east. There is a bit of cloud pushing through, which might look pretty cool in a long time exposure. But what I'm looking for is a very minimalistic picture here. So I'm going to isolate this one rock, which is right down in the foreground, to create some interest and to create a sense of depth between myself and the mountain. At the moment I'm still waiting for the sun to come up just enough to put some light through the atmosphere. So I'm just going to sit on my little ledge here for a little bit longer. I did have the idea that I'd be able to shoot through the lake with my circular polarizer. When I was here the other day, there were some amazing reddy yellow coloured rocks just below the surface, but with the current situation with the wind, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to see them. But the fact that I've got this rock here and the mountain in the background and I'm doing a sunrise at Cradle Mountain, I'm stoked to be here. So let's just wait a few more minutes and see what happens. So I've just taken a few exposures pre-dawn, and what I'm really enjoying is the cold blue silvery light, which I think adds a lot of mood to this image. I've just tried to talk about the importance of finding a good location before a good sunrise or sunset. I do have the luxury of Cradle Mountain only being an hour away from my doorstep, but when I go and visit new locations, I always walk around during the middle of the day when I'm not in a hurry to grab my camera bag and try and get that golden light. So what I've done now is I've just positioned myself in this spot I established a few days ago, like I said, and so I'm not rushing around. I'm going to spend my time here in its entirety and give myself a few more days if I need to find another position if I think there's something better around the corner. So probably another 15 minutes away now from sunup, which will be 7:45, and sitting on this cold rock, I am actually looking forward to going back to the chalet and having a nice warm cup of coffee. So I've just been photographing this scene once again, and I've tried to do something very difficult. I have tried to put my camera right down on the lake's edge and trying to avoid getting splashed. The water is quite cold, but I've got a really interesting composition here, and what I've tried to do is get about a half a second shutter speed just to freeze these little wind vanes across the water, which is adding a little bit of movement to this composition. But the tricky part of it is not getting my camera wet, and the hard thing is trying to focus on a foreground when you can't really have access to the back of the screen. So it's a bit hit and miss, but I'm really pleased with the results so far. And the sunrise is just starting to change colour, and with a little bit of luck I'll start to get some peachy coloured clouds behind Cradle Mountain. I've got myself back up on top of this rock. I was getting a really cold backside, so I've retreated, and I was getting a whole bunch of water on the front of my lens, which was not working. But I think I've got a really cool picture down there, and now I'm just up a little bit higher, and I'm going to try and cut through the water with the circular polarizer to try and get those rich coloured, reddy, yellow rocks in the foreground, which I'm not sure. But the sunrise over the back of Cradle is spectacular. It's got a beautiful crimson light, which you can see, and it is certainly highlighting the two snowy peaks, which looks incredible. So I've just finished shooting Dove Lake, looking over towards Cradle Mountain, and I've got some amazing pictures, which I'm really stoked about. I'm just packing up and heading back to the car park, and I'm very excited to see what the results are like. So I've left Cradle Mountain and I'm on my way back home to Devonport. The Cradle Mountain photography session this morning was amazing, but the light now has flattened off and there's no real gain being up there for the rest of the day. So I'm just doing a little side trip to a waterfall, and it's an awesome little waterfall hidden in the Tasmanian wilderness, relying on a bit of local knowledge, and it's a place you really don't want to get lost. So let's go and have a look. So I've just been making my way down this slippery bank, trying not to fall over, and judging by how much water is in this little stream, this waterfall down the bottom is going to be pumping. I can just see the water fall down through the trees, and you might be able to hear it. I've just got the simple problem of finding my way down there, which is a bit precarious. There's a bluff down here, I can't get down there without falling. So I'm going to navigate myself back uphill a little bit and see if I can find a easier point of entry into this fall. Going through logs. So I've managed to crawl down this bluff, and I'm feeling a little bit safer, and I'm about a stone's throw from this incredibly powerful looking waterfall. So I have actually made it to the bottom of this waterfall, which sure is pumping the water downhill, and I think I've got to try and find myself a place a little bit further back from the waterfall, or I'm just going to end up with a lens saturated in overspray, and it won't look any good. So I've just been skirting the side of this river, and I'm going to go and have a look to see if there's a good composition over in the middle, which should be interesting. This time of year is not a good time for slipping in Tasmanian rivers. It'll soon wreck a good day if you're soaking wet. So time and patience As you can see, the driftwood in this river is not that stable. Exercising caution. These rocks are super slippery this time of year. But it pays to check out this place from all angles. I'm dealing with a big tree that's fallen across the middle of the river, which blocks the composition a little bit. So I think I'm going to have to find somewhere, maybe a little bit further up the bank here, so I can shoot around the side of that tree. So I've chosen this spot down by the side of the river. I'm slightly sheltered from the mist being generated by the waterfall. I haven't been able to get completely around this fallen tree, but I think the tree itself, just a few limbs poking over the waterfall, will add a little bit of character to this scene. So I'm just going to set my sturdy tripod up here. If you are shooting waterfalls, a sturdy tripod is an absolute must, with good extending legs, because if you can't get your camera perfectly still with its legs in the water or with a gentle breeze, then you're no way you're going to be able to capture this waterfall or any waterfall with a slow shutter speed without making the whole scene blurry. So a few moments later I'll set up and I'll talk you through this composition. So I've set myself up down on the river's edge here. I'm still getting caught by a bit of spray from the waterfall, which means I'm just wiping my filter and the front of my lens periodically. I've chosen to shoot this landscape in portrait so I can capture this little part of the stream in the foreground here. And what I'm really enjoying is how the line of water sends the eye to the main feature up in the background, which is the waterfall itself. I've got my shutter speed set at 1 second. And the reason my shutter speed is so fast in comparison to some waterfalls is to try and combat the mist that is accumulating on the front element of my lens. And I don't want to have a misty shot by default because I couldn't get the shot without keeping the lens clean. But 1 second is ample shutter speed to get that nice milky flow of water over the backdrop and through the foreground. And straight away after taking just one picture, the front of my lens has started to mist over, which means I'm going to have to use my 2-cent plastic bag for sandwiches to keep the front element clean in between making camera adjustments. So I just finished taking a few exposures of this waterfall, which I'm really happy with. And then I've noticed the sun has just started to poke through the clouds, which is putting light across the waterfall, which is something I don't usually look for in photographing waterfalls, as it tends to overexpose the flow of water. But what I've noticed with the exposure from this scene is that the light, subtle light, on the back of this waterfall is actually creating a bit of separation between the foreground, which is in shadow, to the background, which is light. And it's actually adding another dimension to this photograph. And I am looking forward to seeing this on the big screen, as I think there's always room to learn when you're photographing out in nature, and this is my first time I photographed with light blaring onto the waterfall. So let's hope it turns out good. So I've just finished taking my waterfall photos, packed all my gear away, and the sun is nearly directly overhead now, being noon, and that waterfall is far too overexposed now for any good photography of waterfalls. So I'm going to head my way back up through this ravine and make my way back and have a look at those pictures in the lab.